Welcome to the Action Podcast. This is going to be episode 17. Our part one, we're going to divide this one into two parts. We're going to be reviewing both Young Guns and Young Guns 2 today. And I have with me Peter Escarcega as well as Lawrence Morris.
Hello.
Both of these guys were on the Indiana Jones podcast as well. If you haven't listened to that or watched that yet, go ahead and click below. And of course, make sure you subscribe and comment on your opinions on some of the things we say, who's right, who's wrong, the whole nine. So so again, we're doing two movies today. Again, we're gonna have a part one and part two, so this episode will be cut up, but we wanted to honor both of these together because of Guns 3, which is coming out August 3rd. Not sure where exactly it's going to be released at right now. It's really tight-lipped, but I have a feeling it's going to be streaming. So make sure I'll send an update once we review that one as well, where you can watch it. But I think I have a huge hunch it's on streaming. So
it's crazy how much secrecy is behind this third movie. I mean, it's almost like an MCU
there's not a trailer.
movie.
It's a multiverse.
Nothing. Yeah, it's Young Guns in the multiverse. But I mean, other than Emilio Estevez is directing it and starring in it,
Christian Slater and Lou Diamond Phillips are both in it.
Yeah.
And both of those characters, they technically died, but it wasn't right after the Billy the Kid incident. So especially in history, both of those guys live on. Actually, and we'll get into this as well, but Doc Scurlock actually didn't die as well early on. So and we'll sort a lot of those, what's history and what's not. I mean, obviously I know with films, they're adaptations. This is not a documentary. But with that being said, I will say there are a couple things, just because I've done a lot of history on this stuff that I didn't think was necessary and wish they would have done something different, but we'll get into that. But first, let's talk about Young Guns 1 and why we're watching Young Guns 1. Young Guns 1 obviously started it all. And, it starred Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, Dermot McRoy, Casey Siemaszko, Terrence Stamp, and Jack Palance. And it was written by John Fusco, who's pretty much has written all three of them. And this one's directed by Christopher Kane, who he directed Pure Country and The Next Karate Kid. Those are some of his bigger things. This movie came out in 1988. But, this came out at a unique time because, right before this movie came out, there was the 1980, disaster of a Western called Heaven's Gate. And even though it's called that, the movie actually ended up breaking even, but this movie was supposed to revolutionize Westerns, and the budget was the biggest ever for a Western. And so it had so much high hopes, and it just didn't happen. There's just so much turmoil with that film. And so it ultimately ended up making its money in terms of like it broke even, but to the studio is considered a big disaster. $36 million disaster is what they said. And so where this movie comes out, 8 years later, Westerns really hadn't picked up since then. So this is kind of the dead period of the Western. And so nobody was really sure if this movie was going to work out, but they tried to basically kind of do the equivalent of a Brat Pack Western. You know what I mean? And so all the stars in this movie, they're all the young up and coming actors. And obviously all these guys had very good acting careers as well. So you can see the talent level that's in this film. And, with that, I think this movie, it's a little stylized in terms of like, it looks like it's from 1980 here and there, like especially like Pete's background. That's an old K-Gem effect I used to be able to do myself when I was doing the community access station. But besides that, though, there still is some very good aspects of filmmaking in this one, and the acting performances. These guys just crushed it when it came to not just the camaraderie, but just, again, this is just a good, entertaining Western. And everybody loves kind of the Billy the Kid story. And so I think this one does a good job of really giving us an action adventure. Pete Escarcega, why don't you give us a little thoughts on your opinion of Young Guns?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think my opinions are sort of going to bleed into each other between 1 and 2. I mean, the first one, I mean, this background that I chose was, I mean, it was the first thing I saw, and at the time, I'm not somebody who's privy like you are about what that means, but I was so impressed by it because it started showing all these characters, and each time a new character popped up, it's like, oh my God, I know him, and he's great. And they also show like a little bit of their personalities in each little introduction. So you got to see just right off the bat, like who these characters are, who's going to be in the movie. It's going to be a Western. Then they all start just shooting like crazy. And I already know that I'm going to get into something that is going to be, high energy, violent, funny, because a lot of these characters that are in here were also in a lot of comedic roles. And Young Guns 1, for me, it was certainly a lot more historical, in terms of like the way that they've told the Billy the Kid story. It certainly looked and felt a little bit more raw than Young Guns 2. But I mean, I just remembered watching it and just being so excited about how the story was being told itself, because I mean, I've always been a Billy the Kid sort of fan, and anytime even if it was just some like random documentary, I would just go and watch it. But when this came out, it was almost like a Billy the Kid on steroids. And so, I mean, I just got really, really excited about it. And then Young Guns 2 came out, where, I mean, visually, even though I don't think the numbers tell you that it's really that much more budget, but it certainly had a look that was a lot more high budget,
Including,
felt,
I was gonna say, including Alan Silvestri's score in that, which to me really, really carries Young Guns 2 as well.
yeah. And it was certainly more Hollywood Young Guns 2. I mean, there were certain aspects of it that were like very, very much like more Hollywood. So it was really an amplification of what that first movie was. As much as I loved the first one, I actually really loved the second one best. I was really shocked to read some of the Rotten Tomatoes on these movies. Like the first one's 41%, and then the second one is a 29%. Like I don't understand that at all. But the thing that I love the most about these movies was Emilio Estevez. I mean, there couldn't have been a better Billy the Kid cast. I mean, he's not, I've always loved him and thought he was a great actor, but I mean, he brought this sense of both, like he could be lethal, he could be serious, but every time he would laugh, I mean, it gave you this absolutely perfect character.
And that's what the real Billy Kid was like. I mean, it's such a unique, again, you got to, and this is how he's described in real life, but again, kind of having this, he's ultimate charmer, women like him, guys like being around him, but then if you cross him, you're gonna die. And
right.
and like I said, Emilio Estevez really does a great job of cradling, this super enjoyable, laughable character, and then again, he'll cut your throat if you break his pals, you know what I mean?
So before I hand it off to Lawrence, I mean, the first one, I think it was a VHS experience. The second one was certainly a theatrical experience for me, and then you throw in Blaze of Glory, and it's like that's it. I'm good. This is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, like I remember
number two just blew me away.
Yeah, like I remember number 2 coming out, but I don't remember. I mean, I could not have seen it in theaters. I mean, I was 10 years old, so like I don't know why I felt like I saw it in theaters, because I remember Blaze of Glory when it came out. I remember buying the the single tape on that, and I remember seeing it, but maybe I just saw like TV versions of it, and so I saw the TV version of Young Guns and the TV version, because again, I'm 8 and 9, and I'm 8 and 10 watching a rated R movie. Like our parents aren't that.
I had the tape soundtrack, but I also had that. Remember the tape singles where it was just a sheet?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
would pull the tape out of just a little sheet.
No, for sure. I mean, I know for sure we listened to that song like tons of times. I think it even made one of our fake radio shows that we had, but
that song crushed.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you as well. You know, and we'll spin it here to Lawrence, but yeah, I love Young Guns 2 way better. I think it's just better crafted film overall. But yeah, to agree with you, Peter. But let's go to Lawrence. Let's get his. Tell us your experiences with both Young Guns and Young Guns 2.
Well, okay, for me, I was never into westerns as a kid until this movie. My dad, you know, he grew up on these John Wayne kind of just spaghetti western, just so bad. Like they were just so boring to me to watch. So just not entertaining. The action was just so bad. I mean, just nothing about it just was like entertaining for those old westerns, the old black and white ones or the old John Wayne ones. This one was definitely, at the time so this movie came out in 88, I was 10. So, I mean, yeah, it was just kind of along those lines of those action movies, but very, I guess as realistic as you can kind of think of a cowboy movie or a Western. The action felt great. It wasn't like over the top antics where these guys are doing like impossible stunts where, you know, they're jumping off things and jumping on trains. It was just like gunfights, you know, very basic. But the
tapes.
I think the cast was perfect just because you know, Emilio Estevez and, you know, you think of Charlie Sheen, they at that time were just the cool dudes to be, you know, to be part of a movie. Of course, you know, just really like seeing how they made it seem way more just, I would just say like the movie felt like an adventure, like a real adventure. And like as a 10-year-old, you felt like, okay, like what are these guys going to get into? Obviously, like this band of misfits, and you know, kind of ties onto that, you know, growing up in the 80s with like the Goonies and those kind of movies where they get a group of people and you kind of, you know, you have a goal to achieve.
Yeah.
And just kind of felt like you know, it was just the story. I too kind of went back in the history and kind of looked at the whole what was it, the Lincoln County
War
or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good story, just like based on what I've read, and to kind of see how it played out in the movie. You know, and like you said, I kind of went deeper into some of the characters, even on Young Guns 2, and you know, they don't obviously end the way it ends in the movie, but you know, because some of these guys actually lived longer lives. But it was just a great story, just how it was told. It was an adventure. Emilio Estevez to me was like you said, the perfect person to play that at that time. I mean, he's kind of had that, you know, that Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez, cool guys at the time. You know, they were perfect. Kiefer Sutherland. I was a big fan of Lost Boys, so I mean, totally. You know, that was cool to see. But you know, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed both of them. I would probably say Young Guns was, to me, the reason why I like Westerns now.
Nice.
You know, moving to the present, because like I said before, only Westerns I would really see would be what my dad would watch. And you know, I'm not a big John Wayne fan, so that's all I really thought of Westerns. Or, you know, you can get to some of the Clint Eastwood stuff, but I would say this movie was like my Western movie that got me going. And then, you know, you piggyback that on with other movies like, you know, your Tombstones and those things like that, you know, made it so much more enjoyable because, you know, it's fun to go to Universal Studios and you see the Western kind of sets and you're like, man, this is like exactly what I felt like when I'm watching that movie. I was like, this looks like one of those backlots, you know, when they're in some of these towns.
Yeah.
So it's a fun movie, especially as watching it now as a 43-year-old compared to when I was 10 years old. It's still enjoyable, which is awesome because, you know, I've seen some movies, I've gone back and watched some movies I thought were great as a kid and they don't hold up. This one, I feel like you could release as is now and it would still be a good movie.
Yeah, for sure. at least with the story. I would want some.
That's why I have high expectations for the third one. I mean, you can continue on this Billy the Kid story. You have the same cast, hopefully the same crew attached or something. At least some of them. I'm excited about the third one.
Yeah, for sure. I think. Yeah. Now I think about it, Lawrence. I think I might be with you in terms of, this movie might have been the one. I would say it's this and Dances with Wolves are really what got me into Western type of films.
Wolves. There's an L.
Yeah.
Wolves.
Yeah, wolves. Dances with Wolves. But,
Wolves.
Yeah. So, but yeah, this film and Young Guns too as well. Obviously, again, I can't place if I watched them when they first came out or if it might have been a year or two later. I definitely feel like I probably had to see them on TV, but
I can tell you where I watched Young Guns too. I was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. My brother played for the Kenosha Twins, single A minor league program for the Twins.
Nice.
And I don't know if you're in Kenosha, Wisconsin, not much to do, but we went to go see this movie. I remember it was at this theater in Kenosha where it was like me, my dad, and my sister, and we went to go see the movie. And I was like you said, that Bon Jovi song came out, and I was like, this is like epic. like after seeing the first one and being like this is, I want this. Like I was like hoping it'd be like more of these movies just because it was so awesome. But yeah, Kenosha, Wisconsin, I saw Young Guns 2 in the theater. So fun fact on me.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, for me, when I saw Young Guns, it was really like you guys said, it was the introduction of the Western genre to me. And unlike Paul, because I know that you're a huge Western buff and you know everything about every Western movie ever made, but I don't know, I never found myself going back in time to see anything prior to Young Guns. Everything Western that I've been sort of exposed to has been post Young Guns. And I think to Lawrence's point, it was something that sort of changed kind of like it made introduced a new genre to me. And so
yeah, for sure,
I got excited about Western movies moving forward. I never went back. So, I mean, to be honest, I've never seen a lot of the old Clint Eastwood movies, which is, I know, my bad, being a film reviewer, like to not have seen a lot of Clint Eastwood movies is bad, but it's the truth. And that's what I do, Paul. I tell the truth.
You are. You're a truth seeker. That's good. Yeah. So we'll wrap it up. But yeah, Young Guns 2 is probably the movie I watched maybe the most out of any film, and then typically I'll watch Young Guns as well, just because I want to watch Young Guns 2. So but again, to Lawrence's point, if it wasn't good enough or like rewatchable enough, I wouldn't be continuing to watch it over and over and over again. And even though, again, like I can nitpick on the style and whatnot, the overall story, and again, it's a good action Western, and it was realistic too. It wasn't bombastic. And that's where it really, really crushed, where the second one just built upon the more realistic Western, and then took it to another level with again the cinematography, the music. Alan Silvestri's score is again a beautiful thing, and it's just really well photographed as well. They utilize slow motion much better in the second one, and again, just beautifully shot, which I believe Dean Semler is the director of photography in the second one. So yeah, awesome. So for our background and intro conversation, like always, we give points, and then the winner between Pete and Lawrence gets to choose the next film that we will be reviewing. So for the opening point, I'm going to give the point to Pete on this one for the combination of I think both of yours are good, and then I like Pete's explanation just slightly better. So we're not we got to give points away. You know what I mean, guys? So
yeah, listen, Lawrence, in your face, dude.
Let it begin.
1-0, and I'm already I'm already bragging.
Ultimately, I get a participation trophy no matter what. So
yeah, we got nice parting gifts for you.
And because I just like gloated right now, the final score is going to be 1-12, Lawrence winning.
Okay, well, I got a couple things. I have my Wikipedia open right now, so it'll be go time.
There we go. All right, so just we talked about a little bit about just the production itself, but so Young Guns 1 cost $13 million and ended up making over 45 million, which is a very good. That's a 300% for those of you who are keeping track, and that's obviously a great. Actually, don't quote me on the 300%. That might be 200%. 200%. But either ways, it made a lot of that's a good return ratio. If you spent 13 and make 45 back. So even with P&G, you're still pretty much doubling your money, which is very good. And then Young Guns 2 cost $20 million, but it still made over $45 million. So not as good, but is still a decent amount.
That was shocking to me that it only made 45 million. I thought it would have made a lot more than that. I mean, for some reason, in Monrovia, that movie was huge. Like everyone talked about that movie, everyone. So I just assumed that everyone else in the world was going and seeing and loving this movie as much as we did.
Well, I think it's just still the genre, and it's not. I think the audience was still limited. Again, Westerns were still kind of coming back, so I think it, like I said, 44 off a $20 million budget's a good return. Everybody was happy money wise, but I think maybe but the fact that it made the same amount with $7 million more is probably what affected it.
Genre aside, I think this is one of those films that even if you're not into Westerns, that you would still be able to enjoy it completely. And it's a shame that it didn't get more people in the seats. It's almost like I'm not going to compare it to Rudy as a film, but Rudy, right, in the example that I'm going to use, where it's a sports movie, and a lot of people wouldn't go and see this movie because it's a sports movie. But right, if you saw it, you would see there's so much emotion, and it's all about never giving up and that perseverance, and it's one of the greatest movies ever. And again, not comparing this one to Rudy, but I'm just like, genre aside, it's just such a great film.
Yeah, for sure. And I think your Rudy comp actually is probably pretty good also. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but Rudy didn't crush it in the box office either, but it just has such a huge cult following, which Young Guns definitely is a very similar situation as well. It maybe not had dominated the box office, but I guarantee you made a ton of money in syndication and replays and whatnot. I mean, it's like I said, I've watched it tons of time, and every time it's on for a good 15 years before I bought it. But I would always watch it when it came on. So
like both those films, like I could take my wife to both those films, and everyone else can take their wives to both these films. And even though they're not into Westerns or sports movies, I think both they would walk out of both of those movies feeling satisfied and being like, wow, that was an inspirational movie. Or in terms of Young Guns 2, for example, wow, that was really emotional. Like, because it really does get pretty heavy at the end there.
So yeah, and review wise, it did okay. I don't think it again crushed it on the review side, but the number one rating was an 80 from New York Times's Janet Maslin. Young Guns is best watched in the playful, non-too-serious spirit in which it was made. Though the film concentrates reverentially on its young stars, it also includes good performances from a few grown-ups, notably Terry O'Quinn as the lawyer, Alex McSween, and Jack Palance as the story's wild-eyed villain, which is Lawrence Murphy. Chicago Sun-Times gave it a 75. Say it again?
He was on City Slickers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Curly.
Considering how tidy and self-aware most such Hollywood projects are, any movie that can give Phillips' Mexican Indian a monologue in which he painfully recounts the massacre only he survived and then blithely rejoices in idiot gunfire is a movie you have to respect. So there's a little bit of I think slightly backhanded compliment there, but it still gave it a 75, which is a 3 out of 4 stars. So this did pretty fine. And then the one which I think is just, again, a hater let a hater hate is from the Chicago Reader. I always like to point out people that just are terribly bad at reviewing films. But Jonathan Rosenbaum from Chicago Reader gave it a 20. Full of odd notions and interludes, the movie never really comes together, but fitfully suggests a cross between Boys Town and Greaser's Palace. Again, I think it's a horrific review.
What an idiot.
Yeah.
My bet would be he's out of the industry.
Yeah, right. Well, to me, it's like, if you don't like these type of movies, then don't review it. Like, I don't know, leave it to somebody that actually knows what they're doing.
Like the Action podcast.
That's right. Like us, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think we watch different types of films too. So, okay. So, Young Guns 2, the best rating it got was an 80 from Michael Wilmington from the Los Angeles Times. Young Guns 2 generates more sheer visual excitement than any Western since Peckinpah and Leon were in their last 70s prime. That is a fantastic review, I think, and I think that nails it. Definitely nails it. And he gave it an 80, which I think is fair. I mean, I'd give it a little higher, but it's not the worst. Roger Ebert gave this a 50. The screenplay feels unfinished and the direction is ambling, but the performances are interesting. That same Janet Maslin from New York Times, Young Guns 2 concentrates principally on the drawing power of the post-adolescent heartthrobs in this cast. This approach has its appeal in limited doses, but makes for wait for that one, huh? That won't let me finish that. So yeah. So, but she gave it a 50 after doing the first one in 80. So that's kind of rough. And then the worst one is Peter Travers from Rolling Stone, who I think literally I hope he's not there anymore, because this guy is just negative Nancy all the time. He gave it a 25. The first Young Guns in 1988 was an endurance test for all but those who think oogling young actors in tight breeches is a fascinating way to spend 2 hours. I mean, again, guy, get out of the business, dude. If you don't like film.
This guy Travers, was he from Tularosa? Maybe.
Yeah, right. Travers. Tularosa.
Yeah, you know me.
Yeah. Good callback there, Pete. Good callback.
Thank you.
So yeah, maybe that's why he didn't like it, right? Because he
didn't like it because
the second one.
They killed the Travers. He probably killed his great grandpa.
Yeah, right. All right. So with this, guys, this is going to lead us into our first list today, and of course, this one should be an easy one in terms of why we're doing this one. But it's the top 5 Westerns of all time, and yeah, this is a pretty tough list. I had to make some sacrifices that I didn't want to, but we'll start with Lawrence first. Lawrence, go ahead and give us your top 5 Westerns.
So my number 5, this is kind of an outside the box one, but I'm gonna go with Back to the Future 3.
Nice.
It's good.
Great movie, obviously. I mean, obviously knowing the whole story, but just a fun movie. Obviously, you guys know how Back to the Future kind of plays out, but I mean, it was set in Western, the whole Western theme, super cool. Obviously, not a traditional Western, but set in the Western era. So that'll be my number 5.
I like it.
Number 4, Hateful Eight.
Oh,
You've seen that? That's with Samuel L. and Kurt Russell. Not an older movie. That's only been out for a few years. Actually, a little longer than that. It's a good movie. Obviously, a great cast. It's just kind of like a single set. I think it's just set in like one setting.
Pretty much.
But
for a majority.
Who's who of characters and how it kind of plays out at the end. Fun movie. Third one, I'm going with Django.
Oh, okay, nice.
Fox. It's Quentin Tarantino, so obviously it's just his take on a Western.
On a spaghetti Western.
On a spaghetti Western, yeah. Cool story. I mean, Jamie Foxx is, it's kind of cool to see a lead Black actor, cowboy. And it's Jamie Foxx. He does a great job. I like the whole story, the kind of spaghetti Western of the whole thing.
And he didn't take any shit at all in that movie, which I loved.
Obviously, Leo killed it in the movie.
Yeah, him as a villain. Him as a villain was excellent to watch.
But yeah, and you got all the memes from every meme is that they have out now is from that movie. So yeah, great movie. Number 2, the one that we're featuring, Young Guns. That's the one that really kind of got it going for me. You know, made Westerns cool to me. Goes all the way back to my childhood. Really, you know, that one, you know, I kind of put them together, Young Guns 1 and 2, but I would say Young Guns is still my favorite out of the two. Only because it's the first one. It's just, you know, it's kind of a basic, like the story is not too overly complicated, but it's still, like, to me, the one that got it going for me. And then finally, Stone, of course, that's just to me like the Western movie. So many memorable, you know, scenes in that movie. Obviously the showdown, what was it, the showdown, was it the OK Corral?
Yeah.
But the one with Val Kilmer, when he was playing Doc Holliday, and then you know, he goes and fights you know, at the end,
Michael Bain.
Yeah, great movie. That's the one of the movie. That's probably the movie I can watch it if it's just on. I'm gonna just sit there and finish it. So that's my top 5. You know, we have a few that did not make the list, but
yeah,
very
cool. We'll go after those after. We don't want to step on Pete's toes here, but Pete, go ahead and give us your top 5.
Yeah. Don't make the toes be as painful as the rest of my body, please. Thank you so much. Our lists are very similar. I mean, the number 5 for me was Back to the Future 3. It's just like you. It's amazing. It's the end of an amazing trilogy, and the fact that it was in Western times just made it even that. I mean, it actually just took so many elements of like what a classic, like a real Western film is supposed to be like, and it made it, and it actually turned it into a Western in the Back to the Future universe. And it was just incredible. Even a lot of the callbacks that they do with past films, and him calling himself Clint Eastwood. I mean, it was classic. It was a classic film. I didn't have Hateful Eight or Django, even though those were my honorable mentions, only because there was 2 other ones that I couldn't not have on my list, even though I Quentin Tarantino's, I'm his biggest fan. And so the fact that I left both of his Western films off of this list is, it was very difficult for me. But number 4 for me is 3:10 to Yuma, which it was like one of, I didn't think that, because I didn't know it was it was a remake. I didn't know there was an original 3:10 to Yuma, because I don't know old Westerns. And I wasn't really ready to go and see it. When it first came out, I was like, yeah, okay. I don't have any interest at all. And then I finally saw it, and I was just absolutely blown away by it. And it turned it into one of my favorite Westerns of all time, obviously being number 4 on my list. Number 3 for me is Unforgiven. It was a different style of Western than I was used to, where you had this older Clint Eastwood. You got an older Morgan Freeman, and this like little cocky bitch of a kid who's riding along with them, and just the story, and you can just, the movie kind of really showed you the pain of that time period, and how difficult it was, and the struggles that you had to go to virtually every day. And it just really showed how hard of an existence that people had to go through at that time. And then We're the Same, Buddy. Number 2, Young Guns 2, which introed me into like real Western movies. And then number 1 is Tombstone. You can't get better than Tombstone in the modern Western era. It's classic. It's funny. It's well written. It's beautifully performed. The casting was perfect, from Billy Bob Thornton coming in for a few seconds to, you know, all these other little characters that you have throughout the movie. And then the main characters just absolutely just elevated. Like Kurt Russell's ridiculous mustache, it shouldn't have worked. But meanwhile, his performance was so amazing that, you know, it just kind of distracted from that big giant mustache that he had.
That's why there's actual mustache. Like that's
no, I get that. I get that. but it just looked odd when I first saw it. But then the performance, just like I bought into it. Like I really felt like I was watching some sort of real time depiction of that time. And then Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer. I mean, it's one of my favorite Val Kilmer performances, other than like The Doors or Top Gun. But I mean, he just came in and completely transformed himself into Doc Holliday, and was despicable and gross, but he was so charming and he was so appealing that you were with him, like the whole way. You were with him no matter what, even though he was completely just awful. Yeah, that's my 5.
Nice. Both of you guys had very good lists. So yeah, I try to diversify my list up a little bit, just because, I didn't want to just be all newer Westerns, and, especially I've actually seen a lot of the older ones. So I try and, so to me, when you do a top 5 Western list, there's just, a couple of these guys just have to make the list. So for me, one of those guys is Clint Eastwood. I got to figure out a way to get Clint Eastwood on here. And originally I had The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, but I was like, no, actually, what is arguably one of the best script when it came to a Western is Unforgiven. And that actually won Best Picture, I believe in 1990. But it's such a unique take on the Western. The script is just so tight. Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, Gene Hackman. I mean, just a who's who of actors at that time, all in this A-list picture. And, Clint Eastwood directing this, it just, you just saw Clint Eastwood go to another level, from not just being a great Western actor, but now being a great Western director as well. And he would direct, obviously, this is like the beginning of his directing career. So he ended up obviously directing tons of movies after this, still directing as of this podcast. So had to get
Gene Hackman was awful in that movie. Like his character was such a meanie.
Well, that's what made this movie work so well, is because they pushed the envelope on so many different sides, so many different characters, and really made it work. My number 4 is going to be, and I'm this is again part of the movie that really inspired me a lot, but Dances with Wolves, like I mentioned before, that also won Best Picture, starring and directed by Kevin Costner. So Clint Eastwood's doing the same thing, but Costner has been, maybe this generation's, prolific Western actor, maybe the generation before, I guess, technically, but he kind of took the mantle over from Clint Eastwood going into this next, going into the 80s and 90s, and even 2000s. Kevin Costner has done tons of Western type, and even has a show, Yellowstone, now, right? So I want to make sure I included Kevin Costner as well. My number 3, and again, this is probably the movie I've watched the most, but I think just film wise, technically, all that good stuff, I had to drop it a few spaces. So I put it number 3, but it's Young Guns 2 for me as well. You can, again, I'll package Young Guns and Young Guns 2 because I watch them simultaneously every single time. But again, just a super influential movie. And because I just love the Billy Kid story, this is the best film that really executed it in terms of making it entertaining, not letting it drag it all. And then just, again, the fact they're able to make a sequel out of it was amazing itself. And then my number 2, of course, you got to have a Western list. You got to have John Wayne in it. And, his number 1 movie is The Searchers. And, they always teach you, if you want to reach a certain, if someone else's levels of success, don't study that person, study who they study. And so for me, Steven Spielberg was always the director I wanted to emulate and study, but he is the guy. He studied John Ford, and The Searchers was his favorite film. And so that got me into that. And you can just see what John Ford did, cinematically. Not many Westerns were shot the way they were until, he pretty much invented Monument Valley in terms of making that a place where to shoot Westerns. And I don't know if he was the first person to do it, but he's the person that made it popular. And it started with Stagecoach, and then in The Searchers in color, it was just so landscape. Now, with that being said, obviously there, the blue-eyed white guy playing the Native American does not hold up very well in today's society. But regardless, again, there's a different time period, so I don't like to necessarily judge off of standards back in the 40s, then
Can I guess your number one?
yeah, you can guess go ahead.
It's either True Grit or it's 3:10 to Yuma.
No, it's Tombstone, just like you guys.
Okay.
No,
wow, you didn't put. I mean, you're such a True Grit fan. That's wow.
I love True Grit, but I mean, I can't put it ahead of these other films. Like,
good for you. Way to go.
Yeah.
Good job.
And that was one I really hated to leave off, was True Grit, because again, I don't watch it as much as these other ones. Actually, I probably watch it more than Unforgiven, but like I said, Unforgiven, to me, the perfect written Western script, I think that's what Unforgiven is.
Yeah,
it's tight with the characters, and all the characters, mesh well. It's just again, if a perfect written, I think, Western. Yeah, Tombstone's number one for everything you guys said. And again, I also, for the rewatch,
we're in agreement, all of us.
It's the cinematography, the music, the acting. I mean, it's to me, it is the perfectly crafted Western, because it's the only one really, again, like that's the Youngguns 2's fault, is the needs versus the story is a little bit blurred sometimes, so it's not perfect script, but entertaining as hell. But Tombstone, I think, combines all of the above. The only reason why I like Youngguns 2 more, in terms of just why I watch it more, is the pacing is perfect on Youngguns 2, whereas Tombstone, there's a couple moments where it drags slightly, but it doesn't stop it from being number one, just because it comes in hot in so many different scenes where you're just like, in for the ride. So awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna pick on this list. I'm gonna pick Pete, only because his kind of the same reason why with mine. You had two Quentin Tarantino films. I would have just picked one of those, and then added someone else. But that was the fault on both of your lists. Was, yeah, you guys literally don't have any of the greatest Western actors in any of yours.
No, I can't put them on there because I've never seen them before. So, like I explained at the beginning of this,
and you don't like Dances with Wolves?
No, I don't like that movie, but I do like Dances with Wolves.
Oh, okay. There, you should see my version. It's really good.
Oh, poor movie.
Dances with Wolves is great. I mean, it's just, it's an epic, and for the time, it was an incredible accomplishment. But you got all these other movies that came out afterwards that just crushed Dances with Wolves. No offense.
No, I love Dances with Wolves. I mean, you guys both know it. It's how I learned, Lakota Sioux. I never would have, Matana Peach Nielo. Like, I never would have learned the language.
And Tatanka is, Buffalo, son.
Made it famous, yeah. So
I don't like it. No, to me, I mean, I thought it was a good movie. It just doesn't seem like a Western to me personally. I mean, I would say it's like me picking like Last of the Mohicans. Like, it's just, are we talking like Cowboys and Indians type movie, or?
I would be okay classifying Last of the Mohicans as a Western. I mean, it's Western period.
It's more about the time period.
Yeah, because there's some modern ones like Hell or High Water. That I would call that like a modern Western, but I wouldn't really group it with these films because it's modern Western so different. But you could still call it a Western. So I'm kind of with you. I would put it more on the historical fiction side. But I mean, this takes place. It's more soldiers and Indians versus cowboys and Indians. You know what I mean?
It's the same period. It's post-Civil War. It's the the development and exploring of the West. And
I kind of I thought about tapping into, but I was just kind of thinking like, when we think of like a cowboy, like kind of that look. Because there was some like the Cold Mountain I liked a lot.
You could have made that. You could have called that a Western. I mean,
if it was, I would have. Last of the Mohicans probably would have been my number one overall.
Okay. I mean, that's a great film. I think it's a loose, like I said, it's a loose Western because, to me, it's always about the frontier, right? And Last of the Mohicans took place kind of in the frontier. So, frontier and Western, I guess, can be kind of, I guess it's, the difference between maybe a traditional Western versus a Western timed piece. But same reason, kind of like, Back to the Future too. You know, I mean, I wouldn't. It is a Western by every stretch of imagination, but it's not like a true Western, but Western themed. You know, so
my honorable mention, and I was so sad that I didn't get to put this on the list, but I mean, there's too many other movies that are just better than it. Is Blazing Saddles.
oh
Blazing
yeah,
Saddles is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and of course, it is in that time period. It's a classic. It's a classic comedy movie.
yeah, and you guys had it on your list, but you know, like 310 Yuma is one of my favorites. Russell Crowe and Christian Bale in that are excellent. Ben Foster is fantastic in that. And
Ben
then
Foster's my favorite.
yeah, the classic Shane. Like if you guys want to ever watch like a classic Western, Shane, you know, it was, I know it was nominated for many awards. I don't know how many it won, but it was a beast back in the day. And that's I forget who stars in that one, but that one's a super famous Western. Once Upon a Time in the West. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one. That one's, I think you guys will both like that. It's you can see where Quentin Tarantino gets some of his, like how he likes to direct and whatnot, but if anybody was to do a remake, I would love Quentin Tarantino to do a remake of that film. But it's a classic.
Yeah, no, my favorite bad Western, which I will watch, is, have you seen The Quick and the Dead?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Bad, but
With a young
Leo and Gene Hackman and
Sharon Stone.
It was super believable as a Western, but no, it's a fun movie though. I mean,
yeah,
I given as
it's like the blood sport of Western movies, you know what I mean? Where it was like a competition of, I love that movie.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
It was just too slow. It's long. It's long.
Yeah.
It's old school. I mean, it's like you said, very chiseled and
Sam Raimi, isn't it? Who does that one?
Which one? Quick and Dead? Quick and the Dead? Yeah, Quick and the Dead, Sam Raimi.
Sam Raimi, yeah. I mean, you're talking about, you know, he ends up doing Spider-Man and, you know, so he's one of the preeminent directors at this time, you know, top of the list in terms of like, I think that one kind of did a little bit what the Lone Ranger did, which is why the Lone Ranger isn't super popular. I don't mind the Lone Ranger. I think it's a fun, entertaining ride, but it's also a little too much, I think, and it's like too much money spent, like wasted money. Like Westerns still have to have this very authentic thing, and I think The Quick and the Dead was a little too much camera movement, which I think takes you out of the experience a little bit, but it's entertaining. And then, like in the case of the Lone Ranger, just way too much CGI, and it's just like, dude, like if you can't blow it up in real person, it wasn't invented then. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there almost needs to be a rawness to the film on some level for like to be able to pull it off like genuinely.
Yeah, again, that's what Tombstone, you know.
No one put on there either. I noticed no Will Smith movie, huh?
Wild Wild West, yeah, that's terrible.
That's like his biggest, from what I understand, that was like his biggest, like, didn't he like Matrix? Like some kind of crazy, like, I think they thought it was going to be this huge thing, and he chose that over the Matrix.
Something like that.
I think I heard that. I think I heard that for sure. I would rather watch Will Smith slap somebody than go and see that movie.
Yeah, right.
And then Hostels is one of my more modern favorite Westerns. If not, it's probably my favorite modern Western, with Christian Bale in it. There's a couple other good ones that had come out. Jane's Got a Gun. Have you ever seen that one with Natalie Portman? That one's pretty good. Forsaken with Kiefer Sutherland. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I never saw that one.
Well,
there's a good one, Netflix called was it the Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
Oh yeah,
it's pretty funny.
I just watched Old Henry, which was recommended by me, and that one was actually really good too. I really enjoyed that one. But that's you know, especially speaking of Young Guns, it's pretty much about an older Billy the Kid that survived and start a new life. So, you know, if I would recommend you guys watching that before you see Guns 3, because that may be kind of a direction that it ends up going. So
cool.
Awesome. So with that, our next category is going to be, and the Oscar goes to, and this can go to a cast or crew member who performed the best, writer, director, actor, cinematographer, whatever element of the film worked best for you. So Pete, you go first. Who's your Oscar go to?
My Oscars for these films, for Young Guns 1, I'm gonna go with my girlfriend Penny Perry, who casted this movie, because I think she just crushed it. And like, again, with this scene right here, when it opens up and you see who's in the film, and it's just the regulars that you're seeing. You haven't even seen Jack Palance. You haven't even seen Tunstall. What's the guy's name? I can't even think of it.
I forgot his name too.
Either way, Terrence
Stamp.
Yeah, thank you.
Terrence Stamp.
Terrence Stamp. You haven't even seen these legendary actors yet. You've only just seen this crew, and then I just think that she did a fantastic job of putting together this sort of I forget what you call it at the beginning, but this sort of breakfast club of Western movies, like just bringing in all these hot actors who are amazing and incredible, and then just sort of building on that to make a great movie.
Yeah, for sure. And with the actors too, though, you know, I know we mentioned how good looking they are, but these guys also, you know, each pretty much carried a movie as well. Like these guys aren't, like I said, slouching on the acting, man. These guys are the best for that generation, specifically at that time. I mean, you know, Lou Diamond Phillips did La Bamba. Emilio Estevez has already done Breakfast Club, and 16 Candles was in that one as well.
No, he wasn't in 16 Candles.
Oh, well, he was in another John Hughes movie. I forget which one off the top of my head, but again, he's already established himself as one of the top actors. Christian Slater, I want to say, had already done Gleam in the Cube, maybe, or no?
No, I think that was after.
Okay,
we'll have to check on that.
That's the second one too. That's the second one. And then Kiefer Sutherland is like the man also back then. I mean, he's obviously royalty when it comes to acting because he's the son of Donald Sutherland, who at that time was already one of the better actors in the industry at that time.
But up until then, he had only done sort of like these really awful, like mean bully sort of characters, and then he came out in Young Guns, and he was almost like more the soft-spoken, intelligent, sort of character. So I mean, he was amazing.
He already did Lost Boys, though, right? Before this, he had already shot. He had already done Lost Boys, though, right?
I believe Lost Boys and Stand By Me.
Yeah.
He'd already done both of those, and those both were like just really just terrible character. Like not him performance-wise, but the characters that he portrayed were just really awful.
Definitely evil, yeah.
And then for Young Guns 2, I got to go. I mean, composer, yes. I mean, that you can make a good argument for that. I think Blaze of Glory should have won. I saw the list of who was nominated that year. Blaze of Glory, I think, was like on the charts forever.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go cinematography. I'm going to go Dean Semler on that one. I thought, I mean, the cinematography in the first one was good, but I mean, in the second one, like I was saying earlier, how there was just an elevation of how Young Guns 2 was presented versus the first one, and just the way the shots were done, the way some of the action was done, it wasn't just so straightforward, and I don't know, there was a fluidity to it, and there was a style to it that I'm hoping that we get to see in the third one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, one of my favorite shots is when Billy the Kid. Well, one is the opening shot when it kind of hovers over them and then comes down.
Them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cuts them crossing the camera. Two great sequential shots there. And then the other one is when he's at Chisholm's ranch, and you know he's talking to John Chisholm, and you know, hey, I want to fight, and I'll shoot one guy for every $5 you owe me. And there's a shot where he's holding his things, but he's like, but I want to fight, do the right way. And, you know, he takes off his thing, drops it, or walks towards the camera and then drops it, and it just lands right in front of the camera again.
That's perfect, but yeah.
And it could have been blocked differently, could have been definitely shot differently, but it's just, again, beautiful cinematography. And obviously the director gets love as well, because ultimately he's in charge, but the cinematographer, excellent job.
You took my farm, Mr. Chisholm.
Is that Cameron from Ferris Bueller?
Yeah, that's Cameron.
Alan Rusk.
Cameron, right.
Yeah. Okay, Lawrence, who do you got?
Okay, well, it's gonna seem like I'm taking the easy way out, but I mean, Emilio Estevez, he was the guy. Like, I mean, he carried. I think he carried the movie because, like you said, there's some great actors, but you could believe him so much as that character because he had that brattiness about him, about that character that, you know, I mean, Billy the Kid was only supposed to be what, 21, 20, like he was young when he supposedly got killed, right? So he was playing a kid, and just kind of the way he kind of, I mean, these guys are obviously older by then, but just his kind of goofiness, but also you could tell he was very focused when like there was like, you know, the real kind of gunfight scenes, but he still had a good time with it. And just the way it was so easy for him to just like kind of like anytime you'd kill somebody, it didn't seem like a big deal. And because just you so kind of like invest in this character as like as a fun character, you're like, this guy just, I mean, if you go back to the body count, it's like a lot of guys die in this movie, like just pretty easily. But his character is just I mean, he's in pretty much every scene in both movies, and you know, he's never, it's like there's never any like, there's no like dry spots there. It's just really, he keeps the movie going. You know, there's some kind of more serious parts in both movies, but you know, he can switch right back and forth. And I think that just kind of speaks to the character of who he's trying to portray, like almost kind of like he was like a sociopath, really, if you kind of think about it as a character that he was playing. Like, I mean, he can just go from, you know, this kind of like goofy kind of, you know,
jovial,
you know, fun joking around kind of character to straight like I'm getting ready to murder a bunch of people and not feel any way about it. Just no big deal. Like when he shot the guy, what was it, for $1.80, the guy who had the 2 buckshots and you know, just made it so weird. Yeah. So I would just say
bye, Bob.
He's the guy, you know, he's the guy. Like I would hate to see if they do come out with a part 3, or when they do, like it would just have to be him. Like there's no other person I can feel plays that character the way he did, especially time. I mean, I'm trying to think who could play that character now if they were to remake that movie. Not like just he at that time, based off of what was going on at that time, you know, during that era of movies, he was the perfect character for cast for that. Only person I did have a problem with was his brother, and I actually wrote it down. Charlie Sheen did not seem like very believable as a cowboy. Yeah. And his accent was just horrible to me. Like his whatever accent he was going.
Yeah, his accent was bad. They all made fun of him apparently on set.
Yeah.
Like, Billy, like, come on, Billy.
At all, but
I'm daring you, Billy.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine what he was probably doing between filming that movie anyways. I mean, it's Charlie Sheen in the 80s, so.
Well, come on. Don't get on Charlie Sheen's case. He did fine.
No, he did fine, but the accent was I did not like the accent.
Gone, it was gone. Did you guys miss something? Like, man, I wish he would have made it to the end. Like, it was kind of like, well, he's gone. All right, you know, I wanted to see the other guys make it through, but I wasn't too sad when Charlie Sheen's character was gone.
I think that was almost the point.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, my issue too is with Charlie Sheen's character is Charlie Sheen was too young to play that role anyway. I mean, the real character was 30 years old. He was actually the oldest, including Tunstall. He was the oldest guy in that whole thing. And, you know, so it should have been more like, Tunstall was kind of like the brains, but he was the physical leader, you know what I mean? Because again, he was the oldest and then he was the most experienced. And so I think it was just actually poorly casted. You know, so
how dare you?
He's a bigger name. But technically, you know, Emilio's older than him, right? But the characters were reversed, so it's kind of a weird dynamic there. So is Emilio Estevez both your 1 and 2, or did you have another number 2?
I would say 2. I mean, the second movie, like I said, the second movie, I liked Young Guns 1 better, just after like watching them back to back. But his character pretty much was the same. I mean, I felt like he picked right back up from the first one. You know, I would say Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips characters weren't as big characters in the second one. But you know, it was so focused on Emilio Estevez's character. Obviously, to me, he carried that whole movie, both of them, really. I like Kiefer Sutherland and Lou Diamond Phillips also, but Emilio Estevez was like, I mean, he was cool because I mean, he came out then I think was a few years later was when Mighty Ducks came out and the whole, you know, it's just like he was like an actor to me. I mean, I haven't really seen much of him since, but he for those those movies and then leading into Mighty Ducks, which was an awesome movie too. You know, he really nailed it.
I have Emilio Estevez as well for mine, and so I'm going to give Lawrence the point just because that's who I picked as well.
On the board.
Yeah, and but again, like for me, the other one for Young Guns 2, it would have been Alan Silvestri. Again, I think the music, like one of the biggest differences between the first one and the second one is the music. It's got two really great themes in it, and they just add so much to the film. Like the very beginning of the film, the music in the very beginning of the film is such a great little anthem, and then the main thing, the main theme of it, which is just great, Alan Silvestri. And he obviously ended up doing like Avengers Endgame and Forrest Gump as well. So you know, Alan Silvestri's had obviously a very, very good career. So it's 2-1 Pete right now. Obviously, anyone's ball game here. We're still early on. And okay, so our next category, and I don't think any of these we're going to vote for because so I'm just going to give them. Unfortunately, there's not a lot about the casting in this one in terms of like extra choices. But I didn't know this, but Tom Cruise, he was the fourth person shot when Charlie burst out of the house.
Yeah.
Cruise was on set one day, and the director thought it'd be great to get him on the movie. And Tom Cruise also wanted to be in it because he'd never been in a Western movie and wanted to try it. So, so Cruise dressed as a soldier, and he was in one of the shootouts, and his character got killed. So the fourth man that got shot when Charlie burst out of the house, the McSween house. So interesting stuff there. The other one on the first one, Patrick Wayne plays Pat Garrett, and his father is, of course, John Wayne, who also starred in Chisholm, which is kind of a different take on this story, which was in 1970. And
I didn't know that. And I saw that in your notes. That was really quite interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
He was.
I have to actually go back and look for it.
John Wayne's kid. Crazy.
Yeah. Randy Travis was the Gatling gun operator, and for those who know Randy Travis, he's a famous country singer, especially at that time. I think he's literally like in the peak of his career at that time when the movie came out.
Randy Travis, yeah.
And then in 2016, in a meet and greet interview with Lou Diamond Phillips, he revealed that Sean Penn was originally offered the role of Billy, and Patrick Swayze was offered the role of Dick Brewer. See, now Patrick Swayze, I think, would have been a good Brewer. I actually would have. I think. That's but Swayze
over Charlie Sheen for sure. Like Patrick Swayze would have. I think he would have killed it.
Swayze didn't want to do another ensemble film, so. But I think he would have really crushed it in this role.
But that sort of confidence and that leadership that he has in like Point Break, for example, like if he had that sort of character in Young Guns, the first one, I think he would have crushed it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's literally a perfect switch out because he's older, just like I mentioned before, and again, it has those leadership qualities too. I think he just could have executed a little bit better. And then in Young Guns 2, another cameo is, of course, John Bon Jovi. He is a dirty, long-haired prisoner, and he's shot in the chest and blown backwards as he's climbing out of the pit during the lynch mob rescue scene. So he's actually in technically 2 shots, I believe. And then he kind of creeps out of the pit, and they cut, and then he holds a gun up and then gets shot in the chest, and it's in slow motion. So you can kind of easily tell it's John Bon Jovi if you pay attention. So, but yeah, that's all I have for casting, unless anybody else had anything.
Nope.
Okay, so our next category is It's Not Your Fault. And this one, I want the most powerful scene that gets you emotional. So I'll let you, I'm not here to define what is emotional to you. But obviously the other one is funny or feel good. So just obviously balance your two scenes. So I'll start with Lawrence first, since Pete started first last time.
Right.
So we're doing the most emotional scene from each movie?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, for me, the most emotional scene from the first movie, or from the first one, was at the end when, I should say towards the end, when they're in the house is burning down, and Charlie, right, finally kind of stepped it up. Obviously, it didn't last very long, but he kind of like found himself. Because his character seemed a little, I wouldn't say he was a pitiful character, but he just was kind of like the whooping boy for that group, but he really kind of stepped up and just, he kind of found his courage, and because this whole time he kind of seemed scared half the time.
Yeah.
And he finally kind of just really went for it. Big picture didn't lead to much because he pretty much got killed with the house.
Yeah.
And I don't hit anybody. Those shots went pretty much, he pretty much missed every target, but he did shoot the gun a few times. And, and the way it just kind of shows like Emilio Estevez's character, or Billy the Kid, at that point was just kind of like giddy about the whole thing. I'm like, your buddy's about, like, you guys are pretty much all about to die right now. And he just kind of like excited for him, which just kind of just shows his character was just, like I said, almost like a sociopath. Like, this isn't even real life to him. He's just kind of like playing the game while everyone is around him is just kind of crumbling. Literally the house is on fire, and he's just kind of like, just kind of just seeing this guy have a meltdown. He just married, this guy married, but he marries someone, then leaves her the day of the wedding. And
oh yeah,
but that was an awesome, that was kind of like that, like that's when I knew like these guys aren't making it out. Like they're like, I remember watching that movie as a kid thinking like,
yeah, happy
ending. Obviously it didn't work out that way, but that's why I was like, okay, this is probably not gonna, these guys aren't all gonna make it to, I didn't know there's gonna be a sequel at that point, but I was like, there's no way these guys are gonna make it out. So that would probably be the most emotional part for the first one. The second one, and like you said, this isn't historically accurate, was when Chavez, Emilio Estevez, Lou Diamond Phillips' character dies, supposedly. Obviously, we know he doesn't die in real life, but it's kind of unsaid that he was going to the spirit world when the horse comes.
Yeah.
Because I thought his character was really cool too. I wrote down a couple of notes on his character. In the first one, they had him like, he was the knife guy, right? And there was a scene in the beginning where they all kind of draw their guns, and he draws a knife, and I'm thinking like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm like, a gun's still way more effective because it's one shot. Just hope you got that, you know what I mean? But
he uses a rifle for sure in the second one.
Yeah, to see him kind of die, I would say even both those, him and both those characters died with him and Doc, Keith Sutherland. They were just like, though they were from the original, obviously, and to see them not make it through towards the end, obviously they kind of ambiguous with Billy the Kid, but with those two, like they're gone, at least according to what we saw on screen.
No. Well, Lou Diamond Phillips is in the next one, so.
Yeah, well, and then like I said, I read up on it, but it implies that he dies because the spirit horse comes. He kind of
obviously falls onto a grave, and then the spirit horse comes. I think that is as clear as can be.
Well, I think what they're going to do is stretch it because, like I said, the real history, he didn't die till 1927 or something like that. So theoretically, when he goes to the spirit horse, is just he eventually dies, right? Again, obviously we're just talking about the sequel, and in the movie, yes, you're assuming he's dead, but
so and then those are tough parts. Just the losing of those two characters on the second movie because along for the ride, literally, for the first one. And this is kind of another quick one is I just kind of thought of this, was the part where they go, regulators regulating anything, the whole Warren G intro from like that was kind of like, oh yeah, that's where they got that from, was from Young Guns.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really emotional, but cool how Warren G used that, and they do the whole regulators. And
but you definitely get a little bit of chills though the first time you hear that on screen.
Yeah, you're like, oh, from that part.
A lot of theft with that song. Stole from Young Guns, stole from Michael McDonald. It took a lot of things from other people.
Call it sampling, Pete. Sampling.
Oh, sampling. Right. Exactly.
And also just kind of fun facts on two Lawrence's scenes. So the original Charlie Baldry actually died the way Kiefer Sutherland died. I mean, it wasn't as like he didn't run out, but Garrett had thought he actually shot Billy the Kid, but it was Charlie Baldry. And so Charlie Baldry died in Stinking Springs, which is the scene where Doc dies. And then, so he actually doesn't die at the McSween place. And then, like we just mentioned, Kiefer Sutherland character also didn't die off of Stinking Springs. He ended up living a full life and died in the 20s, along with Doc Scurlock. And then obviously there's, theories out there, and we'll get into some of those facts and myths that Billy the Kid actually survived that as well and lived to be on to be Bill Brushy Roberts. And then who else? In the second one, Tom O'Folliard, and this is one of my director's things I'll talk about later, but Tom O'Folliard also dies in the second one, but didn't die right then. He died, I think he ended up dying after Billy the Kid, but and he also wasn't 14 years old. He was
like his best friend.
Him, Charlie Baldry, the three guys, those are the three pals, but they were the ones that were actually closest, not Doc Scurlock and Chavez, but bigger stars get to be friends. So okay, so Pete Dog, you're up now.
Yeah, the first one, there wasn't ever really a moment where like I got emotional in it until my answer is going to be across both films. And it's going to be a single word, gentlemen. Pals. Pals. At the very end, during that last little voiceover by Kiefer, that you got hints of it throughout the first movie. That last scene where he's talking about the grave, he talks about pals. Somebody writes it on, nobody knows who did it. It's just an ongoing theme throughout both of these two movies. And then even in the second one, when that sort of camaraderie between the guys. Billy Kid's like, I shall finish the game. Before Doc's about to die, he's like, let's finish the game. The emotion that Billy the Kid was obviously feeling when he realized that Chavez's wound was a mortal wound, and he's like, now what am I going to do?
A bad shot.
It's both those movies are all about just being a pal. I know that's not a great answer for these because there's not really specific scenes, but I mean, there's the scenes that got me every time in both of those films had to do with the word pals.
Yeah,
those are the ones that always just sort of tugged at my heartstrings. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even in the end, when they're doing the kind of the epilogue of Young Guns, right? And when they talk about unknown, it's Kiefer Sutherland's voice, and unknown.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, but that scene is just excellent. I say it better.
But you think think about it though. Did it pay off to be a pal of Billy the Kid? I mean, I kind of went through all of his, even on the Wikipedia page, with kind of like his actual bio. Like a lot of his friends got killed.
Yeah,
Billy the Kid was.
Yeah, that's what makes it such an.
I think yes, because of the fact that at least the way, I don't know historically, but at least the way the first one sort of portrays him going off on this sort of kill spree was because something was done to him. He finally had some sort of like a father figure who was like reeling them all in and educating them, and there was something really positive finally in his life, and then somebody just came out and just like murdered him, and he needed to take vengeance against these people that actually did something very wrong to him and the regulators. And so that's just started like this snowball effect.
Yeah.
But I think his motivations were more about getting vengeance for this really unjust killing of an innocent man who just wanted to sort of help. And things just got really kind of horrible after that. You know, I think it's true that he just sort of bought in, at least according to the film, started buying into the myth and what he read in the papers and whatnot. But I would have rather been his friend than been, you know, been part of the Dalton boys or the Murphy boys and
yeah,
all these people.
Yeah, and to build on what Pete just said, you know, all these guys had a lot in common in terms that, you know, they all had really no other options. John Tunstall took them in, and that's what formed a lot of these Western gangs at the time. Is just, you know, Billy Kid's parents were both. His mom died, I believe, by the time he was 8 or 10, maybe 14. I think it might be 14. But you know, so that drastically affected his life, and he was pretty much an orphan by the time he was 14 years old. And you know, but to show his two sides, I mean, everybody loved him that was around him because he did take good care of everybody. And that's a big reason why he was able to keep escaping to towns. And you know, they even talk about it in Young Guns too, like the people love him, and
He was beloved. Yeah,
he was beloved, and so people actually liked writing with him. And so yeah, I know ultimately he's a criminal, and we're not, you know, necessarily glorifying him as a savior, but for this character specifically, and we're going more on the movie side as opposed to the historical guy. But you know, Young Guns 2, I think his character definitely fades in terms of him being a good guy. But in the first one, you know, he really did care about the pals thing, and he did have a true love for John Tunstall because he never had a father figure. And you know, Peter mentioned that as well.
but then also like the people that are supposed to, you know, be in charge of the law are associated with people like the Murphy group, who are awful human beings. And so if they'd done like some real injustice to Tunstall, I don't know if I would consider what Billy the Kid did as criminal. You know what I mean? Like it's just a product of a really unfortunate circumstance that he was thrown into. Like he didn't go there thinking, I'm going to go out and just murder all these people because I'm crazy like that. You know, the powers that be had people under their payroll that basically were awful, evil people. And he was reacting to this sort of injustice that was going on in the West at that time. I think that's very, I think that's quite noble, to be honest.
To an extent, I think you both are right and you're both wrong. This is Crimson Tide. Yeah, I think you're both right and you're both wrong. I think there's, again, you're talking just an ultimately huge gray area. And, you know, like Pete kind of mentioned, both sides were kind of corrupt. So it's kind of like pick your evil. Do you want to be the corrupted government official, or do you want to be the, you know, citizen that's taking it too far and taking law enforcement in their own hands and taking it?
I'd rather be the rebel, 100%.
Yeah, and again, I think you're splitting hairs and
fighting against injustice. Yeah, sign me up.
Sure, I'm with you. I mean, and obviously Billy Kid's a lot more exciting character than Murphy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything to add?
I do want to add this, just as a side note of pretty much any movie ever made, especially in a Western, these guys never ran out of ammo. Did you guys notice? And there was a couple I was trying to like count. I mean, because you figure 6 shots each revolver, and he's kind of dual pistol. I'm like, it was like they never stopped. Like they never stopped to reload once. They're on, you know. I mean, and I kind of was like, well, they get from town to town, and they would just have to like restock their ammo. I'm like, these guys just had ammo to burn. Like it never ran out. Never reloaded when they like in a major battle. Like I was just like, at some point they gotta like, okay, he's just shooting and he's just shooting, and it's never like reload.
Save your bullets, buddy. Save your bullets.
You have to suspend disbelief a little bit.
Yeah. But other than that, and then the some of the slow motion deaths a little over the top, but it's a Western, so I guess
I'd rather be blown away in slow motion than
some of those bullet wounds were kind of like, come on, unless that went through, you got to get that bullet wound out. They were just taking shots.
Yeah, like Bon Jovi, I want to get shot like him, like that. That's a nice glorious death. I don't want to get shot like the guy in Open Range. Oh, by the way, honorable mention, Open Range as well. Ever seen that where Kevin Costner shoots the guy, or Robert Duvall shoots the guy with the shotgun? He just gets blown into the wall. Yeah, I'll take the slow motion death any day of the week, because
I don't want to get blown into a wall.
Yeah, you get fucked up in real motion. Awesome.
Who got the point for that category?
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna give it to Pete. I like Pete's explanation a little bit more. But again, you guys are spaced.
Yeah, make sure to comment about how you agree with the point system so far.
No, Pete actually has only won once, so Pete's got the worst record out of anybody.
Yeah, I because the judge, no offense, is terrible.
Yeah, that's exactly how you get more points, Pete.
Man, I wish I could do an Emilio Estevez laugh. Like if I can that, I would be great.
Yeah. So make sure you guys tune in next time for our part 2, and we'll wrap up Young Guns 1 and Young Guns 2. We got 2 more lists: best original song, and also
Kiefer Sutherland
movies as well, roles. And so that'll be coming up next on part 2. Stay tuned. Thanks, guys. Cut.